Welcome in, everybody. Happy Saturday evening to you. It is in-game live game day right here on SportsGrid. I am Brady Kannon along with Tom Vecchio, and we've got you for the next 4 hours talking hockey, college basketball, college baseball, even all kinds of things going on. We'll touch on a little golf. Hey, football's over. Who cares? We've got twice as many things going on here on a Saturday night on SportsGrid. However you may be joining us, Sirius XM channel 159, all the television, online streaming services. We appreciate you stopping by. Tom, good to see you, my friend. How are you doing this Saturday?
I'm doing great. Yeah, we are getting set for a puck drop coming up shortly between Team USA and Team Canada and the Four Nations face-off. We saw a game earlier today. We have a few more games on Monday. As you said, we have college basketball, college baseball to get into. We can jump into some of the NBA All-Star Game festivities. You name it, there's a ton to get to. Yeah, like I said, football's over, but there's plenty to dive into. We look at MLB season futures. We can take a look at NBA conference futures, whatever it might be, as we're getting to the second half of the season. There's a lot to get to.
Yeah, it's really a great time of year. And you mentioned the Four Nations face-off. I think that has been absolutely a home run. I've fallen in love with that. You know, we're only a few weeks away from college basketball conference tournaments. You mentioned baseball coming right around the corner. And, of course, the world of golf. We're that much closer to the first major of the year. So, yeah, very exciting times in the world of sports for sure. We do have our first guest on board. George Kurtz is with us. We'll bring him in momentarily. Later on this evening, we will also have Steve Merrill and Jeff Dawson to talk some college basketball with us. And then finally, Matt Grissom around 10 p.m. Eastern time to talk some college baseball. But like you said, Tom, they are getting ready to drop the puck here pretty soon in Montreal. The Four Nations face-off, Team USA and Team Canada, the much anticipated matchup between these two teams. Let's bring in our man, George Kurtz. Of course, you know him here well on the network, appears every day of the week, talking hockey, baseball, you name it. George, great to have you. I've really loved this Four Nations face-off so far. But I think this is really kind of the marquee matchup I think everybody's waiting for tonight, the USA and Canada.
Yeah, absolutely. It is the marquee matchup that everyone's waiting for. I mean, I had my doubts about this coming in, not the matchup, about the Four Nations tournament. Am I going to like it? Am I not? Canada and Sweden, right off the bat here, they were playing hockey, right? They were fast-paced. These guys want to win. They're taking it seriously here. You saw USA and Finland the other night. I didn't think Finland was all that good, but Finland, listen, the first two periods of the game, you can argue they were the better team. They couldn't get that second goal to take that lead, and they were playing tough physically. They were playing really to the the echo of the whistle. I mean, they took some took some plays where I thought they were going to be penalties, boarding penalties, which I didn't expect from the Finns. Weren't called, and it played to their advantage until it blew up in the third period here, and then they come back with a big win today versus Sweden here. So it's been much better than expected for me personally. Listen, the Russians should be there. I know what's going on in the world. They're not here. That's my only negative about this tournament. You can't have this tournament without Kucherov, without Kaprizov. Yeah, I know, sorry. Ovechkin, Vasilevsky, Sorokin. You can't have it without those guys. Hopefully, if they do this again, the Russians are included. If we need a 16, get the Eastern Europeans involved as well here. But other than that, it's been much better than I thought.
Yeah, I would say throw in Team Czechia in there as the sixth team, a Six Nations face-off, a little bit of round robin, a team gets a bye, whatever it might be. What are your thoughts for tonight's game? Because we just got news a little while ago that Cale Makar is out for Team Canada. We have seen the line jump a little bit in the favor of Team USA. It's now up to minus 118, minus 120, jumping around a bit. Canada sitting at minus 102. Are you expecting more scoring because Canada's already down one defenseman with Shea Theodore? Now Cale Makar is out. They had to call up Thomas Harley. What are your expectations for tonight?
We all know this. Cale Makar is a huge loss. It sort of evens out, right? Team USA doesn't have Quinn Hughes. All right, he couldn't make the tournament either here. So I guess you could say it evens out in that regards here. Coming in, I thought, Canada was top-heavy on offense. All right, that's not surprising. McDavid, McKinnon, of course, great, all-world great players here. But USA was deeper. I said they can really roll four good lines at them here. I thought defense was the edge towards Canada. Now you lose Makar here. I think that's maybe even here. And goaltending is all Team USA. I don't trust Binnington as far as I can bowl him, all right? I think for Canada to win this game, they have to win it 4 goals plus, 4-3, somewhere around there. And it wouldn't surprise me to get higher than that. I don't think with Binnington they can win a 3-2 game. My only worry about Hellebuck is, and I've said this a million times on SportsGrid, Hellebuck, or the Winnipeg Jets in general, they are the Dallas Cowboys of the NHL. Great regular season, tend not to play so well when it matters, right? And even that first goal against Finland the other night, a little soft by Hellebuck. I thought, here we go again, that sort of thing. But no, he rebounded there. Team USA has to wake up, play a little, get into the game quicker. They can't take 2 periods off. They take 2 periods off against Team Canada, they will get run out of the building here. This should be a very fast-paced game. Every game has gone over so far. So I'm taking the over again. I'll take the over 6.5 here. I mean, I originally was on Team Canada, because I thought they were the better overall team, and they just never seem to lose to Team USA here. And I'm going to stay with that. Mainly because I got a better price now, right? I got I get 100 straight up here. So I'm going to take Team Canada here, but this should be a really good game. I feel better about the over than I do the game itself. It should be fun. Go Team USA.
Yeah, I'm with you, George. I didn't get involved action-wise, but it feels to me like Canada is the better overall team. And I wonder what your thoughts here about Team USA are. Are they really that good? This team that we saw beat Finland and score all those goals late in that game. Is that because Team USA really is that good and can compete with Canada and possibly beat Canada tonight? Or is that more Finland not being that good, the game we saw the other night?
Team USA is good. Do I think they're as good as Canada? No, but they're not that far behind. You're splitting hairs here. You really are splitting hairs. So I think Team USA is right with Canada, and goaltending is a big advantage here. Listen, we know how it works in the NHL. You got a hot goalie, you can't beat them in a playoff series all of a sudden. So if Hellebuck gets hot, and he's maybe the best goaltender in the NHL anyway, Team USA can be almost unbeatable. Bennington has played that way in the past, but not so much this year. I mean, with the St. Louis Blues, I understand Blues, different team, and of course Team Canada, .897 save percentage. That's not going to get done here. He's got a 2.9 something goals against average. So he's bottom line is this: he's not a top-notch goaltender. I don't know what happened to Canada's goaltending. There are no more Patrick Roy's, Martin Brodeurs. Goaltending is all about Team USA. If Hellebuck plays up to his capabilities, I don't know if Team USA can be beat. It's really that simple if Hellebuck is playing up to his capabilities.
So you were saying before that you're expecting, some scoring. If Team USA is going to win this, it's going to be 4-3, whatever. Have you dug into any of the player props? Because some of the prices we get on some of these goal scorers, we legitimately never see. Like Austin Matthews at plus 185 is a line we never see from him. Connor McDavid at plus 220 for a goal is a spot we never see. There are times where Matthews or McDavid or McKinnon, they're minus 110, minus 120 for a goal in certain matchups. I think there's a ton of spots to take shots, and that's just me personally being involved in so many NHL props on a daily basis. Do you have your eye on any tonight?
I do. I took both Kachucks. All right, I just need one other scorer to get one here. So I'll take Brady or Matthew. Don't care which one. Maybe both. I think goals are coming tonight. Now, you already said it. I took McDavid last night. Carver and I went in on him. Plus 210, I think it was last night. So we actually got another dime. Wish I would have waited now. Maybe I'll go back in on him again. I thought that price would actually go down, not go up here. So I took Connor McDavid. Once again, Canada knows how important this game is, right? I can't see McDavid not scoring. Thought about Crosby, but I think Crosby might be more of an assist guy tonight. So I stayed away from him. Whoever wins, if either one of these teams wins this game in regulation tonight, the game Monday don't mean anything. They get to rest people until whatever the final is. I think it's Wednesday night here in Boston here. So I'm on McDavid and both Kachucks. I'm still thinking about Matthews, but Tom, he was on a little bit of a slump going into this break, right? 4 straight games without scoring here. So I decided, no, I'm going to lay off him. More of a power play guy. More going to be power play tonight.
Or
game day
George
coming up
Kurtz
after the break.
So my team didn't win this weekend, but I still did with this app that's taking over the game. Sports Millions Pick'em lets you make quick and easy predictions. Pick your favorite players, go higher or lower, and you can still win big even if your team loses. Plus, the multiplier is insane. With just a few picks, you can win big money. So get on it. They've got a welcome bonus to help you start off your winning streak.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into In-Game Live Game Day. Brady Kannon and Tom Vecchio with you, joined by George Kurtz, talking a little hockey here. An update on the hardwood. Oklahoma leading LSU by just a bucket with 13 seconds left to go. 79-77 in favor of the Sooners. Mississippi State, an in-state rival here. Mississippi State at Ole Miss, and the Bulldogs out in front right now, 76-65. Just about 2.5 minutes left there. Villanova losing to Providence right now with just 7 seconds left in this ball game. It looks like it is going to go the way of the Friars, 75-62, and North Carolina trying to hang on the road at Syracuse, 82-78 with just a minute left in regulation there in Syracuse. All right, back to the hockey, gentlemen. The Four Nations face-off, Team USA and Team Canada will drop the puck roughly 10 minutes from now in Montreal. George, you're saying you lean a little bit with Canada and the over. We talked about some prop bets, the Tkachuk brothers, Nathan McKinnon to get a goal. And you guys talked about, whatever happens here, it kind of, makes the games on Monday meaningless. On Monday, you have Canada taking on Finland and Sweden taking on the USA. Explain to me what your thoughts are, how this game can affect those Monday games, George.
Well, if either Canada or USA wins in regulation, they're guaranteed a spot in the finals. All right, so that's why this game is also so big here. You can, I don't think you would see Hellebuck play on. If Team USA wins, you're probably going to see Ettinger on Monday. Canada, I don't think it matters who's in goal, by the way. And they don't really have anybody. I know that's bad. That sounds bad, but listen, they don't. All right, this is the way it is. But I don't think you would see Binnington play because let's face it, if Team Canada wins tonight, unless it's a 9-8 game, means Binnington actually probably played better than we thought here. So it would change the dynamics a little bit. Like I said, Sweden plays United States and Finland plays Canada. One of those teams is going to get a break because it won't mean anything. It could possibly not mean anything to USA or Canada here. And let's face it, it'd be almost like an exhibition game, right? That it wouldn't be the same adrenaline if you know it doesn't matter. It's a physical game. You don't want to get hurt. You want to make sure you're fully healthy going into the game on Wednesday. So, yeah, this game means a lot if one of these teams can win in regulation.
So now that we're talking through this, if Canada were to lose today in any format or any type, would you be interested in Canada team total over on Monday versus Finland, knowing that Canada needs the goals to advance to the finals? Because that's where I'm kind of putting the pieces together right now.
I am really surprised right now that it's 5.5. I know it's -140.
Right.
All right, and that's a crazy juice, but I'm taking that. And if it stays, I'll take that. Canada might score 6 goals all by themselves. All right, because once again, what Tom's saying, if they lose tonight, that's desperation game, right? They have to win that game, and I think they would. By the way, I think they would beat up on Finland here, and I think they would sort of do what the United States did against Finland. Maybe not all in one period, but they'll score. Like I said, what's the worst they're going to score? 4 to 5. So you told me Finland can't get 1? And I think Finland would score some goals against Bennington or whoever's in net as well here. So, yes, to answer your question, I would take the team total over. I would take the game over. Every game's gone over. I don't see that changing if the game's important. The only way I would shy away from it is if the game is not important.
Okay, well, what do you do with the team that wins then, George? Whether it's USA or Canada tonight, are they an automatic bet against on Monday? Because, again, they could be resting starters, what have you. How do you approach that with the team that is victorious tonight going on in Monday?
I don't think they're an automatic bet against. They're probably – I'm not betting on. All right, I won't bet on either. I don't care what they say. They're going to say all the right things, right? Oh, we still want to play. We represent the home country, blah, 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 blah. But it's human nature, and it's a physical game. If it doesn't mean anything, you're going to lose that edge a little bit. You just are. And like I said, Team USA wins. Not that – listen, Ettinger's a very good goalie himself, but Hellebuck's better. All right, and, I said I would be shocked. I think the Winnipeg Jets might go to Montreal or Boston, wherever this team are, and just strangle Guerin all by themselves if he plays Hellebuck on Monday in a meaningless game, right? They're going to want him to get some rest. So I said I wouldn't say it's an automatic bet against, but I will not bet on Team USA or Team Canada if it means nothing to them. But if you ask me which one I might lean towards, I would lean towards betting on Canada, even if the game meant nothing, just because I think they have an easier matchup.
Do you have any action on any of the face-off MVPs? Because I had a take earlier this week that Cale Makar was going to be, or he is my MVP pick. He's obviously not playing tonight, but my thesis coming in was saying Canada is awesome on offense. They're terrible at goalie. And if they're going to advance and or win, it's going to be because of their defense stepping up. We know their offense is set in stone essentially. So Cale Makar would play that dynamic Norris caliber trophy winning role, and thus they would win and he would have a shot at MVP. Do you have a take at the MVP market? Because Crosby's leading right now at plus 400. Hellebuck's there at plus 800 if you think he's going to be carrying Team USA.
Yeah. In New York, we can't bet on things like that. MVP is stupid. But it doesn't mean I don't have a take by that. But like I said, it's frustrating. If I could have bet on it, it likely would have been Crosby, just because his numbers are just out of this world in these kinds of tournaments. What's he won, 29 straight games? I mean, it's nuts.
Right.
He just does not lose in tournament play here. So I would have taken Crosby there. Listen, you want to go McDavid, not betting against that. I don't think I would have taken Makar. But I would have thought about it. But I would have taken the studs. Like I said, McDavid comes to mind as well. I just think these guys want to win. They want to put on a show. And I said, Crosby doesn't lose. It's hard to bet against him. He looked like he was 28 in Game 1 versus Sweden, right? I mean, he was playing fantastic, which is amazing because these guys don't even play together. Yet they're so good. It doesn't matter. They're just that kind of talent on the board here. I would have gone with the chalk here. They don't call me Mr. Chalk for nothing.
All right. Just about a minute or so left before they do drop the puck in Montreal for Team USA versus Team Canada. George, we've seen the money bounce around really going both ways here. And I just checked a local book here in Las Vegas, and it's back to pick 'em, minus 105 either way. I've also seen the juice come down on the over. Earlier today, it was 6.5, and the over was juiced at minus 125. I've seen it now down to minus 115. Any explanation in your mind why money might be coming in on the under for this contest without some of the defensemen for Canada?
Listen, that's beyond me. I'm going over here. I can't see Binnington having a great game. I can see Hellebuck, but not Binnington. I'm going over here. The loss of Makar doesn't scare me all that much. This wasn't going to be much defense in this game anyway. He's not a great defender.
All right, very good. He is George Kurtz. We'll keep him around for one more segment here as they get ready to drop the puck. Team USA and Team Canada in Montreal. Four Nations face-off as we continue on In-Game Live Game Day.
slow play drumbeat grows louder and louder every week, to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scavern, when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are going to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who knows how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams, who's got the best goaltending? You're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
Patino himself, in a clip that we just played, said basically the stats are not backing up the team's wins. St. John's is offensive glass. That's where a lot of opportunities for St. John's came from. St. John's does not shoot the basketball well. It might even be fair to say they shoot it poorly. They were 3 of 16 from deep last night, but it doesn't seem to matter to them.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
College basketball finals, North Carolina hangs on to beat Syracuse 88-82, and LSU comes back to win at Oklahoma 82-79, the final. And I believe that is the first conference win of the season for LSU. I believe they were 0-9 coming into this game. They really needed that one. 82-79, they drop Oklahoma on the college hardwood. Okay, they're getting ready to drop the puck, probably about 2 minutes away. Tom, you off air were saying they're still singing "Oh Canada" up there in Montreal, but we're getting awful close here. In fact, I think they've taken it off the board here locally in Las Vegas. The closing price, basically Team USA at FanDuel minus 122 on what? What's going on there? A fight broke out already?
Yes.
What is going on here?
I think it's Hagel and
I'm a little bit delayed, so I don't see that yet.
There's a fight. I'm not kidding.
The money or the line just came off the board at FanDuel. I was reading the money line there at minus 122, the closing number for Team USA going off as the favorite. And then all of a sudden you're saying hands are being thrown here on the ice. And the game hasn't started, George?
This was planned. This was obviously planned before the game with Hagel and Matthew Tkachuk, by the way, that they were going to go. And that was a good fight, by the way. That was not, a little wrestling match. They're throwing haymakers there. I mean, wow. I didn't even know Hagel could fight, by the way. That was a good – I mean, I can't tell you. I'm stunned that they would do this in Team Canada's Team USA. But I guess, hey, they want to I don't know if something happened between Florida and Tampa Bay. These two teams are in the same division. Maybe they had some hostilities going on here. But that was a good spirited fight. What a way to get this started.
Yeah, that wasn't exactly – Go ahead, Tom. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying this is electric to see it for international hockey, which we don't often see. But if there's any player to do it, it would be Matthew Tkachuk. And I'm trying to think, was there a hit when Florida last played Tampa Bay? I don't know, maybe Tkachuk went after Hedman or Kucherov, and now Brendan Hagel is exacting some revenge. But we should be getting actually underway in this. And like you said, the juice had moved it around just a little bit, settling at minus 118 on the under. Does this change anything, George?
You're doing it again.
No way.
The brother, Brady Kannon and Sam Bennett, another Florida versus Tampa Bay. Something must have happened, Tom. Something must have happened.
This is weird.
Once again, It's Brady Kannon and Sam Bennett now. It's Ottawa versus Florida. Not as good a fight here, but my God.
Not a real good look, in my opinion. Yeah. Does this put a little bit of a damper on the tournament for you guys at all?
No. I'm
this is good stuff.
This is in my mind. This is great. I love seeing stuff like this. I don't even see it enough of it. But one fight I could see. Okay, Team Canada versus Team USA. 2 fights. Something's going on here. Both Kachuk brothers. Something's going on here. I'm very curious to see why. When we find out why these 4 guys went at it.
George, I wanted to ask you before we're done here. You had an idea in your mind how this game was going to play out. This certainly was not a part of that script. Now that we know this and the way it started, this has got to be chippy all night long, I imagine. How do you approach this from an in-game betting standpoint? Is there an edge or a flow that you see one way or another?
Well, it's going to be chippy. All right, and we're seeing it again now. Now they're playing here, but another fight. Here we go again. A 3rd fight already. This is Parayko and
Hammer the under. Hammer the under. Are they ever going to play hockey?
This is unbelievable.
This game's never going to end. I think it's JT Miller, by the way. So, wow. I did not see this coming at all. This is going to be a very chippy game here. I don't like the fact that both the Kachuk brothers are in the penalty box. Not good for my anytime goals for both of them.
If we're going to be seeing fights and or chippy game, and that means there's going to be more power play opportunities, there should be some open ice that could lead to extra shot attempts. If we're trying to extrapolate some type of betting value out of this, extra shot attempts, if they're playing 5-on-4, there's going to be more chances.
I can tell you the under has seen more juice now. At FanDuel in the live wagering, it's still 6.5. You mentioned, Tom, the closing price was -118 on the under. It's now -122. I don't know. You guys tell me.
I got -125. So this is wild. This is completely wild here. I had no way I saw this coming in the first 9 seconds of the game. 3 fights. 2 were apparently rehearsed. The other one was not.
Well, the USA is down to a -115 favorite on the money line. If you want to lay a goal and a half with them, it is almost 2-1. George, thanks so much. Enjoy the hockey. No more fights, please. We'll be back in just a moment. More in-game live game day coming up.
Slow play drum beat grows louder and louder every week, to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scavern, when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are to learn, we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience, who's gone out and recruited, who know how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams. Who's got the best goaltending? You're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
Patino himself, in a clip that we just played, said basically the stats are not backing up the team's wins. St. John's is offensive glass. That's where a lot of opportunities for St. John's came from. St. John's does not shoot the basketball well. It might even be fair to say they shoot it poorly. They were 3 of 16 from deep last night, but it doesn't seem to matter to them.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
We are only 2 minutes in the hockey game between Team USA and Team Canada, the Four Nations face-off, and we already have 3 fights, but no score. Still 0-0. Again, 2 minutes in, Team USA against Team Canada. Thanks again to George Kurtz for joining us. We shift gears now and talk college basketball. Plenty of action going on this Saturday night. TCU beating Arizona State right now, 27-20, just under 8 minutes left in the first half. I kind of had a feeling here. Arizona had a big game against Texas Tech, a hard luck loser, almost upset the Red Raiders, did they, earlier this week, and now having trouble with TCU, who is not a very good team. Also, Santa Barbara and UC Riverside in a good one in a Big West battle. Santa Barbara out in front 31-30, and Illinois taking care of business right now over Michigan State in Champaign, 31-21, still 9 minutes left in the first half. And to talk more college hoops, we bring him in, our man Steve Merrill from Wager Talk. You can follow him on Twitter at Steve Merrill. Steve, thank you so much for joining us tonight. How's your Saturday of college hoops going so far, my friend?
Going well. Had a winner in Colorado to start the day earlier this afternoon. And, it's something we've talked about. I think these teams that aren't used to traveling to these new conference schools, especially thin air and altitude, we sometimes find an edge. And that Central Florida at Colorado matchup just looks strange on paper. And we had the Buffs in a basic straight-up win situation.
So we have a huge game for Florida just getting underway, 6-4 lead so far. Do you have any action on this game? Would you advise anyone to jump in if they don't have action on this game? 15.5 point. We know how good Florida has been this year, but what are your thoughts so far for this matchup? Because South Carolina team, I'm not really too worried about overall.
Yeah, Tom, I didn't have anything on this game in particular, but I will say that the SEC is just loaded. In fact, I saw a stat a few weeks ago. Mathematically, every team in the conference, I think, has a better chance of winning the NCAA tournament than the conference tournament this year. That's how balanced and loaded it is. And it's really insane to think that's even possible. But, just last week, 4 of the top 6 teams in the country were coming out of the SEC. So this is one of those conferences where really anybody can win on a given night. Obviously, South Carolina is not at the same level as Florida. Gators coming here off of 3 straight wins, though, against class Tier 1 teams. So I don't think they'll lose this game outright, but wouldn't be shocked to see the Gamecocks maybe keep it close. And one thing South Carolina does well is they slow the game down. They're in the bottom half of tempo in the country. Florida likes to play fast, so we'll keep an eye on the tempo in this game. If South Carolina is able to slow it down, maybe they can hang within the big number.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Steve. Florida, off of those huge wins, won over number 1 Auburn on the road. And then they face this opponent, where they're, like Tom said, 14, 15-point favorite. I thought maybe a possible letdown here for the Gators. Don't want to take South Carolina to win the game outright, but I would be taking the points here if I was going to get involved with this one. About 25 minutes from now, up in Provo, I think this is a very interesting game. We talk about Florida winning a couple of big games in a row. So have the Wildcats of Kansas State. They beat in-state rival Kansas, and then just earlier this week, they beat Arizona. And now they go on the road to BYU. And I was a little surprised to see the point spread so high. BYU favored by 7.5 points. But I would want to be on the Cougars. It just seems like a bad situational spot, Steve, for Kansas State.
Yeah, this is kind of what I was talking about earlier, Brady. Another Big 12 matchup here where these aren't two normal teams playing each other. Obviously, BYU, Kansas State, BYU is the new team to the conference in recent years. But here again, thin air and altitude. In home court in college hoops is worth more than any other sport. The NFL now, home field's worth like a point on average during the regular season. NBA, it's not worth much either. College hoops, college basketball, there is still strong home courts. And when we get that altitude factored in, the reason it works is because teams just aren't used to it. Even in the NBA, Utah and Denver usually have an edge, but the other teams are somewhat used to it. And then you factor in the point, like you made, Brady, that Kansas State not in a great setup in this game after coming off some other big games. In fact, they've won 6 straight conference games. This is a team that started the conference season just 1-6 straight up back in mid-January, and they're now 7-6 in the conference. They've also got an altitude game at Utah on Monday. So let's see how this game goes tonight. I do lean BYU. And by the way, the sharp money has moved this line today. It opened as low as 6 on Friday. It's now closing around -8. So the Sharps like BYU, I would agree. And seeing how this game plays out here, it might be another spot to fade Kansas State on Monday when they're at Utah.
Speaking of Utah, they're at home later tonight taking on Kansas, 6.5 points. A little bit of juice on Utah at -120, 145.5 over-under. Is this kind of the same situation? Kansas traveling to Utah, going to stick with the home court in altitude? So you have the same feel for this one?
Yeah, I'm definitely not looking to fade these teams at home in this situation, so I would lean Utah here. And also, Kansas has not been a great team this year. They've underachieved for the most part, and even in years when they've been really strong, they've always had a stronger home court than they've been on the road. And this is a Jayhawks team that I think is a little bit under what they've been in years past. I just don't feel like this is a national title contender. Just 17-7 overall. They're just 8-5 in conference play. They're coming off a home win against Colorado, so it's probably not a huge focus spot either. They do have a big game at BYU on Tuesdays. This is another team, just like their in-state rival, playing back-to-back altitude games. They're at Utah tonight. We'll keep a close eye to see how this one plays out. But then they're against that BYU team we just talked about on Tuesday on the road as well.
Steve, how do you explain Gonzaga? 25.5-point favorite here. And in Ken Palm's ratings, they are ranked 13th in the country. And yet they aren't even in the top 25 in the traditional polls. That doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, this is still Gonzaga. They are still definitely a name brand. You know, like some people say, Gonzaga is not a mid-major. They are a blue blood of college basketball. And, you know, yet they aren't a top 25 team. And here they are favored by better than 25 points over Pepperdine tonight at home.
Yeah, it's interesting, Brady. I did a free play video for Wager Talk TV, wagertalk.com this past Thursday on that late night San Francisco Gonzaga game. Gonzaga was about a 14.5-point favorite. They only won by 11, so another non-cover for them. But one thing I pointed out in that video is that it's one of the few seasons, guys, in which I feel like Gonzaga is maybe a little underrated. You know, for decades, you can make a case here maybe a little overrated when they were getting 1 and 2 seeds and would always kind of get bumped out in the Elite 8, Sweet 16. But like you said, Brady, this is a team that's top 20 net rating, but not even top 30 in the polls right now. They're like in the mid-30s when you look at the additional votes. So I do feel they're a bit undervalued. Like always, they played a pretty fast tempo. Pepperdine likes to play fast also, and that's always a recipe for trouble. When both teams play fast, that's when the better team has a huge edge. It also enables a team like Gonzaga to win by margin. It makes it a little easier to cover these big numbers when it's going to be a fast pace of play, and I think Gonzaga is going to push the pace tonight.
If we want to flip over to tomorrow, we have a couple top 25 teams in action. We have a top 25 matchup between St. John's and Creighton. Do you have any thoughts on that? Because we're coming down to the final few weeks here, leading into some conference tournaments. Creighton, St. John's tomorrow. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I will say this time is that St. John's is playing a lot better than I think a lot of people expected this season. And they look like they are for real. You know, they've been one of the fastest teams in the country now the last couple seasons. They've slowed the pace down a little bit. They're still top 50, but they're not like top 3 or 4, and their defense has gotten better. As far as Creighton, they also play pretty up-tempo, so I think the pace of play will be pretty quick in this one. Should be a fun game to watch. And Creighton, by the way, is coming off a loss to UConn in their last game, so they should be extra focused here. It is a revenge spot, though, for St. John's, a 1-point loss at Creighton back on December 31st. They're 12-1 in all other conference games, so this is a legitimate revenge spot for St. John's on Sunday.
Yeah, and the Johnnies coming off of a loss, too. Upset at home, I believe it was. Yeah, Villanova. Maybe Villanova was at home. St. John's, I believe, was on the road.
Yeah, Brady, I actually had a best bet on Villanova the other day as a home dog for my clients. So I don't really penalize St. John's much. I thought that was a bad spot for the Johnnies.
Yeah, and you weren't alone on that. In fact, our guest coming up at the top of the hour, Jeff Dawson, tipped me on a good spot that was for Villanova. So you were spot on there. UConn, I've got some questions about them, and I also want to ask you about the Houston Cougars as we kind of expand a macro look, because Tom says we are getting close to conference tournaments. I want to pick your brain about maybe some possible future plays for the tournament. When we come back on the other side, we'll have Steve around for a couple more segments here. Also, Florida taking care of business, but South Carolina keeping it close, 15-11 in favor of the game.
slow play drum beat grows louder and louder every week to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Skovron, when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are going to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who knows how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams, who's got the best goaltending? You're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
Patino himself, in a clip that we just played, said basically the stats are not backing up the team's wins. St. John's this offensive glass. That's where a lot of opportunities for St. John's came from. St. John's does not shoot the basketball well. It might even be fair to say they shoot it poorly. They were 3 of 16 from deep last night. But it doesn't seem to matter to them.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Team Canada is on the board. Team Canada takes a 1-0 lead over Team USA in the Four Nations face-off. Still 12 minutes left to go in the first period from Montreal, and Canada becomes a -196 favorite on the money line. Your total still at 6.5 for the game. The under is at +112. So the odds makers still figuring on this game, headed towards an over the total, -142 if you want to go over 6.5 goals. We're talking college hoops with our man Steve Merrill from Wager Talk. UC San Diego, the team atop the Big West Conference, they are having no problem with UC Davis, 76-59. UNLV by a point over Fresno State on the road right now, 50-49. Arizona State trying to hang with TCU, but not having a good run at it. TCU, the Horned Frogs, out in front, 34-26 over Arizona State. UC Riverside now leading UC Santa Barbara. Both of those teams really fighting for a possible conference win and tournament bid in the Big West, 37-35. Riverside on top in that one. And Michigan State has closed the gap in Champaign. Illinois leading 35-34 with about 2 minutes left in the first half. Steve, we went to break there, and I was talking a little bit about UConn. They lost today in overtime to Seton Hall. I was looking at some, prognostication as far as bracketology and people are figuring on UConn, the 2-time defending champ, as, like an 8 or a 9 seed. Do you think there's a chance that UConn, you would think they make the tournament just based on reputation. Is there a chance that they do not get an invitation? I guess they're going to have to really shine in the Big East tournament or something.
Look at that, Brady, because, you're talking about how Gonzaga is, not even ranked, even though I have them in the top 20, probably in net rating and whatnot. I did my top 25 video for Wager Talk TV a couple of weeks ago, and UConn was the 25th team when they upset Marquette, actually, that weekend 2 weeks ago. And I mentioned how the only reason they were in the top 25 was name alone, because at the time their net rating was like in the mid-30s. So you can make a case Gonzaga may be a little underrated this year, whereas UConn is definitely one of the more overrated teams in the country. In fact, if you look at the Ken Palms right now, they're the 35th ranked team overall at 17-8. The difference has been defense this year. What really jumps out when you look at the efficiency ratings, 14th most efficient offense in the country. That's pretty good. 100th on defense. What a difference. In fact, I'll pull up last season here. I don't have them in front of me. I think they were maybe first. They were in the top 1 or 2. They're fourth. So when they finished the tournament last year, they were the number 1 offense and the number 4 defense last year. They won it the year before, the number 3 offense and the number 7 defense. So it doesn't look like that defense at number 100 is going to catch up. And something I'll point out just for futures in general, like we're talking, is that everyone says defense wins championships, and most of the time the defense is going to be a top 20 defense, but almost every time, from my research, is the national champ is a top 20 offense. And if it makes sense, because if you have to win 6 games in a row like it takes to win the NCAA tournament, you can't have an off night offensively. You can maybe outscore a good team and have an off night defensively. So for that reason, UConn's dangerous, but at 100th defensively, I just don't think they're going to get it done. The real X factor, though, for them making the tournament and maybe making a run is Liam McNeely being back. He missed, 7 straight games. He's played the last 3. They have lost 2 of those 3, as you mentioned, but one of them was in overtime. The other one was a very good St. John's team. The other was a win against a good Creighton's team. And he's played pretty well, too. He's had like 18 and 38 in 2 of those games. So I do think UConn makes the tournament. I think they turn it on. And, yes, they could be a bit of a sleeper in the Big East tournament in March as well.
So talking about futures and or teams having players come back, is there anyone you have your eye on right now that may be struggling but may be building, getting into conference tournaments that you still have faith in, but they're not playing at their best right now?
Yeah, I mean, Connecticut would actually be the team I would have said probably, Tom. So I definitely think UConn fits the mold. I mean, obviously the pedigree, the coaching, the national title pedigree, they're going to be a team nobody probably wants to face when it comes down to crunch time. I think a conference that's really interesting to keep an eye on is the ACC. You know, the writing's been on the wall the last couple of years. It was basically Duke, North Carolina, and maybe Virginia for a couple seasons. Tony Bennett steps down before the season begins. Larinaga resigns mid-season at Miami. The ACC is really down this year. With that said, though, Duke is a really good team. And, you know, you're always leery. It goes back to Gonzaga. You know, when a team dominates a conference, have they played enough competition to step up? Well, Duke beat Auburn. Only Florida and Duke have beaten Auburn. We just saw Auburn going to Alabama today and win. So the Blue Devils look like they're for real. You just got to wonder, come tournament time, playing such a weak conference schedule, is it going to hold up? Is it going to work against them? Whereas, like I said earlier, the SEC is just loaded from top to bottom.
Steve, I think a team, you mentioned Duke is the real deal, and I would agree with you. I think they are very scary if you don't have them in your pocket for a national championship. Another team that I'm possibly thinking about adding myself, but I'm not getting a good price right now because that was a huge win for Houston at Tucson today. Yeah. We all know the McHale Center, University of Arizona, is a real tough home gym to win at, and Houston did it with a win and a cover over the Wildcats. Ken Pom has them 3rd on defense, 10th on offense, has them ranked number 3 overall. Is this team absolutely a possible national championship winner in your mind?
It's funny you said that, Brady, because I've been doing them a lot in my top 25 video. Obviously, this game today, as you mentioned, Houston and Arizona made my top 25 video at wagertalk.com. And what I said this morning was that Houston, once again, one of the best offense and defensive teams in the country. We see this every year, and then they always come up a bit short in the NCAA tournament. They're in a much tougher conference now in the Big 12 the last couple of years than they were. You know, we're always in a mid-major conference back in the America Athletic, wherever they came from. Will that be the difference now? But you do have to wonder about Houston. They always look great on paper, but kind of like Gonzaga, they always come up a little bit short. Is this their season? Perhaps. They're a really good team, and that was an impressive win today.
Would you be looking to eventually fade Houston? Because they're a team that, like, they have offense on most nights, but like you said, you need to have offense every single game out there in the 6 wins to get to the tournament, because they're a team that brings the defense for me, but not always the offense.
Right. Yeah, well, that's what you love about them from a tournament perspective, is their defense is always first or second best in the country. Same with Tennessee. Interesting fact, guys, they've lost 4 games this year. 3 of the losses were in overtime. Their only regulation loss all year out of 25 games was against Auburn, second week of November 9th, first week and a half of November. So, yeah, Houston's really good. Yeah, that's what's interesting, Tom, is their offensive efficiency is always top 10. But I get what you're saying. They're not a flashy offense. They play extremely slow. Those are the teams like Virginia and Purdue we've seen get upset by 16 seeds. Things can go bad in one game when you play really slow sometimes.
Team USA's tied it up 1 apiece in the 4 nations face-off.
slow play drum beat grows louder and louder every week, to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Skovron, when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are to learn, we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience, who's gone out and recruited, who knows how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams, who's got the best goaltending? You're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
20 in 34. They have 14 games below 500. Any given night, you have no idea who is going to play for Philadelphia. Embiid has missed so many more games than he has actually played this year.
I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens because for the last 4 years now, I do it every year when I want to hit myself in the head with a bat.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into In-Game Live Game Day, keeping our eyes on the Four Nations face-off hockey between Team USA and Team Canada. They are knotted at a goal apiece. Still 8 minutes left in the first period, and our man George Kurtz is happy. He's got a ticket on over 6.5 goals, and right now the live market has gone to 7.5. Now, if you want to play the over, you can get plus money at plus 132. Team USA back in the role of the favorite at minus 122 on the money line, again in a 1-1 tie in that hockey match. Steve Merrill from Wager Talk sticking around for one more segment. And Steve, we've got a couple more games out in the West Coast Conference tipping off around 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Not all that long from now, about an hour and change from now, out west. And I wanted to ask you about St. Mary's and Washington State. I actually made a play in this game. I'm somewhat familiar with the West Coast Conference. I went to San Diego. I grew up near St. Mary's. St. Mary's has always been known for great defense, and Washington State is not a very good team this year. In Ken Palm's ratings, they're about the 100th worst offense, or ranked offense, if you will, in the country. I just don't see a lot of points here with the clampdown defense of St. Mary's. I took under 139.5.
Yeah, so this is a rematch, Brady. These teams actually played earlier this year on January 25th, and it was an 80-75 win for St. Mary's, only a 5-point win at Washington State, and they actually trailed a good amount of that game. On average, they actually trailed the game. So for some reason, Washington State matched up well. What's interesting, though, is that Washington State's one of the 50 fastest teams in the country. St. Mary's is the 7th slowest team out of 364. They're the 7th slowest, just 2 spots ahead of Houston. We all know how slow Houston plays. Home teams generally can dictate the tempo, so maybe that's why Washington State was able to kind of keep it close at home. It was a high-scoring game. Home teams usually dictate tempo. Slow-down teams are usually dictate the pace as well. So now that this one's at St. Mary's, the Gales are probably the safer play. But it is a big number, so I wouldn't disagree with the under. I think St. Mary's and the under somewhat correlated in this one.
Another West Coast game coming up, San Diego hosting San Francisco. San Diego 12.5-point home underdogs. San Diego just terrible on offense, terrible on defense. 319 when it comes to Ken Palm offensive rating. Do you have any looks in this one? Because we are seeing San Diego, I'm sorry, Brady, but absolutely terrible.
Yeah, I mean, look, Brady, there was hope when they beat Pacific on December 30th to start the conference season 1-0. They've lost 13 straight since. They've lost 13 in a row in 2025. Yeah, it's true. 1-13 now since that last one in December, or 0-13 since. And San Francisco, as we mentioned earlier, is coming off that Gonzaga loss, so they should be extremely focused. They're still 20-7, 10-4 in the season in the conference. And the matchup looks to favor them as well because San Diego plays extremely fast. They just don't do it well. Really bad defensive team, not a good offensive team. San Francisco holds all the edges. Fast pace should make it a little bit easier for the Dons to win by margin.
Yeah, San Diego, interestingly enough, and as bad as they have been, they've actually taken a little bit of money here. Earlier today, USF was favored by 13.5. Now, like Tom said, down to 12.5. And, you talk about San Francisco being focused off that loss to Gonzaga. I'm thinking possibly overlooking a grossly inferior opponent here. And did they empty the tank? Did they give it everything that they had and come up just short against Gonzaga? Is it tough for them to bounce back possibly here? If we're going to try and build a case for my beloved Toreros, Steve.
By the way, it opened as high as 15, now down to 12. 13.5 was but some spots were as high as 15 overnight last night on Friday. So no question, we saw some sharp money come in. One thing I pointed out in that Gonzaga San Fran video I did for Wager Talk earlier on Thursday is that their 3 losses in conference play, actually all 4 now, have been as a road underdog. And they were blown out by double digits in 3 of those 4. They've beaten up on the weaker teams. And if you look off their recent losses, they beat Portland at home by 9. They beat Pepperdine by 17. They beat San Diego by 12. And now they're coming off their 4th conference loss. So if you're going to play it, I'd like to lay it. It is a weird line move, but I think we're actually getting some value now with San Francisco.
Yeah, when it's moved this far, maybe the Dons are the play at this point. Other action going on the college hardwood. I mentioned I thought this would be a tough spot for Arizona State off of that tough loss to Texas Tech earlier this week. 38-31, they are losing to TCU, who is not a very good college basketball team in 2025. UC Santa Barbara and UC Riverside tied at 37, and Illinois up on Michigan State once again, 41-37. And they are just underway in the second half. We'll come back with more of In-Game Live Game Day when we return right here on SportsGrid. Brady Kannon and Tom Vecchio. Mr. Merrill, thank you very much to you. Enjoy your Sunday in the college hardwood, my friend.
Thank you.
Slow play, drum beat grows louder and louder every week to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Skovron, when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are going to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who knows how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams. Who's got the best goaltending? You're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
20-34. They are 14 games below 500. Any given night, you have no idea who is going to play for Philadelphia. Embiid has missed so many more games than he has actually played this year.
I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens because for the last 4 years now, I do it every year, and I want to hit myself in the head with a bat.
The early line. only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back in. It is in-game live game day right here on SportsGrid. Hour number 2 on a Saturday night here with Brady Kannon and Tom Vecchio. Thanks again to Steve Merrill of Wager Talk. It is time now to bring in our man Jeff Dawson of East Coast Sports Investors, a regular guest here on the grid. Talking college basketball, we continue with the college hardwood here. You can follow Jeff on Twitter at EC Sports Invest. Do want to update you on the hockey game, still at 1 apiece and only 3 minutes left in the first period there up in Montreal. The in-game total was at 7.5. It has come back down to 6.5. If you want to go over that, though, they're going to charge you a lot of juice, minus 172 at FanDuel if you want to go over that total. As far as the college basketball, we were talking about Florida, maybe looking past South Carolina a little bit. And right now, the Gamecocks giving Florida some run. In fact, they have the lead, 31-30. South Carolina went off as about a 15.5-point underdog. Florida, of course, coming off of that win over Auburn and Mississippi State, now back at home and losing to South Carolina, now tied 31 apiece with just over 4 minutes left in the first half there in Gainesville, Kentucky, on top of Texas, 41-37. Let's bring in Jeff Dawson and talk some more college hoops here. And Jeff, thank you so much for joining the program. We've got a bunch of games going on right now, just tipping off in Provo, Utah, BYU hosting Kansas State. And Tom and I and Steve Merrill talked about this one at length in the last segment. Kansas State has been red hot. They beat in-state rival Kansas and then upset Arizona as well. And now going on the road to BYU. And the odds makers are telling us this is an awful tough spot because BYU is favored, and we've seen the sharp money come in on the Cougars as well, all the way up to 7.5 or 8 points.
It's one of these games that I have to actually trust what Vegas is telling me. For me, in the market and the eye test here, they're begging us to take Kansas State here. Here, like you said, they've won 6 in a row. They just beat Arizona. They just beat Kansas. And now they're going to give us 8 points here. It's when it looks too good, smells too good, it usually is too good. So my heart is with Kansas State, but my head is with BYU tonight.
Speaking of Kansas and Utah, another game we just touched on is actually Kansas at Utah, not Kansas State playing another team in Utah. But do you have any takes on this game? Because it's kind of the same situation as we talked about with Steve. A team going into altitude, a new conference team that they're going to be playing 6.5 points that Kansas is laying on the road. Do you like Utah at home? Do you want to lay it with a Kansas team that's been good but not great this year?
You look at Kansas 17-7, and what I see their last 8 games, a win against TCU, a loss to Houston, a win against UCF, a loss to Baylor, a win against Iowa State, and then they lost to Colorado. So it looks like they're in a good spot, a bounce-back spot here against a Utah team that is struggling, hasn't been as good as usual, 13-11, and has lost 3 of the last 4. I think the number's a little inflated. I don't like the 6, but I think Kansas gets it done, and I do lean towards the Kansas Jayhawks side. I do like them in the first half as well. I think you can get that at around minus 3.5 right now.
Right now, by the way, BYU and Kansas State are underway about 3 minutes into that game, and BYU out in front early, 9-6. The Cougars leading the Wildcats, and BYU minus 500 on the money line in the in-game wagering, your in-game total at 150.5. Isn't that amazing? That early in the game, you want to lay $5 to win one. Jeff, on BYU, no, I'm not going to get there just yet. We do have some very good basketball games coming up later this evening. Of course, we talk about that one in Provo. Tom mentions the one in Salt Lake with Utah. Utah has not been a very good team this year, but Kansas has really struggled on the road, and they're not the Kansas that we've come to expect year in and year out here in college basketball. We were just talking with Steve about a couple of West Coast Conference games as well. the Dons of San Francisco are a pretty darn good team. And it seems like every year they're the biggest threat to Gonzaga in that conference. Well, they covered against Gonzaga, but they could not win. And that's typically the case we see with San Francisco in their matchup with the Zags. We've seen a ton of money come in on San Diego, an awful team, one of the worst teams in the country. And Steve was telling us they were as high as 15-point underdogs. This is all the way down to like 12.5 now that San Francisco is laying at San Diego. Do you have any side that you would want to touch here, Jeff?
No, I love where Steve's eyes are here. You look at the San Francisco resume, 20-7. Their two last losses to St. Mary's and Gonzaga. So those are the two teams, and then San Fran in that conference. They've been real good this year, coming off a loss, as you said, 88-77 earlier this week. They did cover the 15 at Gonzaga. I like them here. I'll take the value here. I mean, it did open up at 15. I don't know anyone's out. I don't see anyone out here. So if you shop around, you might catch an 11.5, but I love the Dons here in the bounce back spot. And I'd rather lay 12 or 11.5 versus 15. That's for sure.
Speaking of Gonzaga, they're at home later tonight as well at 25.5 points that they're laying at home to Pepperdine. Big 162.5 total. Do you have any thoughts on this? Because Gonzaga team, again, they're good in terms of rating, in terms of when you look at some of their underlying metrics, but they're not ranked, and they haven't been good against the spread this season.
I tell you what, Tom, if I had tomorrow's newspaper, I wouldn't pick the score right. The Zags have been my kryptonite. They did play Pepperdine on December 30th. They beat them 89-82. Yet I look at the numbers right now, and they're opened at 25.5 and a 26. If you want to get into here, what I like to say usually is take a look at the first half number. You're probably looking at about a 15.5. If they're going to pounce on them, you hope they pounce on them early. But I hate these big numbers here because the back door is always open unless, you got a 30, 32-point lead with 2-3 minutes to go. When you're laying that many points, you're looking at the 8th, 9th, 10th guy on the bench, and a late three can land on 21 to 22 real quick.
The first period has come to an end in Montreal. Team USA and Team Canada tied at 1 goal apiece. Canada currently outshooting the United States 10 shots on goal to 8. The U.S. is still the favorite in the live market here, minus 125 on the money line. This is pretty much, Tom, where we started. We'll shift over to a little hockey here with just a couple minutes left in the segment, and I'd like to get your thoughts, Tom. This is pretty much where we started prior to the puck drop. USA minus 125 on the money line. The total is 6.5 and juiced a little bit at minus 122 to the over. Is there anything that you would do now, Tom, differently from where we were, 20 minutes ago before this game started?
Probably not. We're at a point where I think the teams have settled in. All the fights that started off the game, that get those out of the way. I think they're settled in. As I said to Dave a couple days ago, my play, which Dave calls a skill shot, is over 1.5 in the first period because these teams would come out with energy, but under 6.5 still for the game. That's what I thought what would happen. These teams would tighten up as things go on. So I don't really have too much different compared to where I was 2 days ago.
Jeff, are you involved in the hockey game in any fashion at all?
Well, the first period overs are now 5-0. As you said, 1-1 after one, and the overs full game have been coming in every game as well. But I will say this: the one thing Canada at worst wants is to get this to overtime, because if USA wins in regulation, they're automatically guaranteed into the champion spot on Thursday. So if this sets up 2-2 overtime or 3-3 overtime, at least USA is going to have to play on Tuesday and at least get a point there. So I'm kind of surprised USA is still the minus 125, to be honest with you.
It's a
all
big
right,
factor.
When we come back, we'll have Mr. Dawson dive into some more college basketball. We've got still a few games. We've got a Hawaii game tonight. Yes, indeed. A get even deeper game on the college hardwood when we return.
slow play drum beat grows louder and louder every week, to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scoverin, when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who know how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams, who's got the best goaltending? You're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
20-34. They are 14 games below 500. Any given night, you have no idea who is going to play for Philadelphia. Embiid has missed so many more games than he has actually played this year.
I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens because for the last 4 years now, do it every year, and I want to hit myself in the head with a bat.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into In-Game Live Game Day. Brady Kannon and Tom Vecchio here with you, and sticking around for a couple more segments. We have our man Jeff Dawson talking a little hockey. The Four Nations face-off is at the break after one period. Team USA and Team Canada tied at 1 goal apiece. Keeping an eye on the college basketball as well. Arizona State trying to crawl back into it here against TCU, 46-39. 16 minutes left to go in the second half. A good one at Riverside. Santa Barbara leading Riverside 43-41, 15 minutes rather to go there in the second half. And Michigan State has now taken the lead over Illinois. They beat Illinois in East Lansing earlier this year by 2. Right now they're up by 4, 48-44, 17 minutes left in the second half there at Illinois. Kentucky over Texas, 41-37. They are at the half. Florida just about to go to halftime here, 37-33. They lead South Carolina. BYU up on Kansas State, 17-10, 11 and a half minutes left in the first half there. And then also we have some late games getting underway here. Weber State and Montana. Tom just bringing up Weber State, of course, Dame Lillard's alma mater. He is out there in the Bay Area where he grew up as a part of the NBA All-Star festivities. And Montana up on Weber State, 13-6. 13 minutes left to go in the first half. Mr. Dawson, we turn our focus to some games that are still yet to tip off. Some actionable information forthcoming, I imagine, from you. We have St. Mary's and Washington State in Moraga. We've got Boise State and San Diego State in San Diego, California. And then, of course, I mentioned the Hawaii game. Anything that you would do with any of these games? I'll start with Washington State and St. Mary's. We know St. Mary's is legit. They are a top 25 team, at least according to Ken Pom. And they're a big favorite here against Washington State, who is not very good at college basketball this season.
I got Ken Pom up as we speak. Washington State 16-10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 losers of their last 5 out of 6. They did come off a win, obviously, against a bad Pepperdine team. And St. Mary's 22-4, losses to San Fran, Utah State, Boise State, Arizona State. An inflated number, guys, to be honest with you. I fully expect St. Mary's to do what they do best, and that's to slow the game down, keep it at their pace. Under over that opened at 136 is now 134 and a half, 140. I'm sorry, 138 to 140. So I like St. Mary's. Believe it or not, I think Washington State actually can cover this game. They'll probably, I got them in that 9 to 11 spot. So if you're going to give me 15 and a half, we'll know early, guys, in this game because St. Mary's has a way of playing defense and going on these 11-0, 9-2 spurts. So Washington State's going to have to keep it close early to be able to cover that 15 and a half.
Another one of those games coming up is San Diego State at home, 2.5-point favorites, hosting Boise State at low 135.5 total. For me, I would say I lean Boise State. I don't mind Boise State on the money line. It's not like some dramatic take throwing plus 108, but I also think this game plays to the under of what we have seen. Boise State, 62 in terms of KenPom defensive rating. San Diego's 10. Like, we are in for a true late season conference game. At least that's the way I'm looking at it.
This San Diego State team, this number opened at 1.5. There's only one way I thought it could go, and it did. It went to 2 from an eye test and a market test, Tom. I'm with you. I think this is definitely a Boise State number here. 17-7, they've won 4 in a row. San Diego State, on the other hand, 16-6, did beat San Jose State, did lose upset to Colorado State. So I actually like where your eyes are here. I think Boise State gets it done. You can get them right now +2 at the Circa, and the total right now 134.5. The way I see this, first one to 67 wins this game, and I like Boise State tonight.
You mentioned, Tom, that this is kind of a late season conference game and should have that atmosphere. I totally agree with you. I believe it's both of these teams are tied for third place in the Mountain West. They are really trying to jockey for position, possibly win that conference and earn themselves an NCAA bid. Ought to be a good one down there in San Diego. Okay. The get even or get even deeper game, Jeff. We love a Hawaii game when it's college football season, and who doesn't love a Hawaii game for college basketball either? This one is interesting, though, because UC Irvine has kind of been the king of the Big West for so many years, but they're actually playing second fiddle to UC San Diego this year, and they come off of a loss to San Diego, and then off of that, they just had to squeak out a game against Santa Barbara, winning only by 2 points. It seems like the odds makers have this number short. 4.5 looks short to me, and maybe they're telling me that this is a tough trip for Irvine, and they could be out of gas. Could you possibly take the points with the Rainbow Warriors?
Well, if I'm up till 2 a.m. watching this finale, I'm in trouble here. A number that opened up at 6 is now 4.5, 138 to now a 138.5. A little money trickling in on Hawaii. 14-11, really haven't got any traction this year. I'll follow the move here. I like the Rainbows at home with the 4.5. There are some 4s out there, a 5 at Bookmaker, so shop around here. But I can smell a little upset, or at least a close game here with the home team in Hawaii tonight, Brady.
Let's jump to tomorrow real quick because we have a top matchup. St. John's at home, 6.5-point favorite. It is -120, at least that I'm seeing on the FanDuel Sportsbook right now. Hosting Creighton, 24, 141.5 over under. We got about a minute left. Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, KenPom right now has St. John's winning 73-67. Creighton coming off the loss to UConn. St. John's coming off the loss to Villanova. This will probably wrap it up for first right here for the Johnnies. I like the Johnnies in the bounce back spot here. 6.5 is a big number. That 141 is tricky here. So, again, I think if the Johnnies win and cover, I think it does go over here. So, again, I like the Johnnies here. 6.5. We'll see where the game goes overnight. It might drop to 6. Maybe it goes to 7. But I do lean Johnnies.
All right, very good. We'll keep you around for one more segment, Jeff, and get some maybe overall thoughts. Look at the future picture. March is not that far away as far as college basketball goes. It's going to be fun. We'll be back in just a moment. More on SportsGrid.
Need help with your NFL picks? Get NFL insider knowledge from Pro Football Doc, Dr. David Chow, with Sick Picks at Sports Injury Central. We reveal hidden injury advantages the sports books miss. Our doctors provide insights, and our algorithm tells you who to bet on. Spreads, player props, totals, in-game bets, Sick Picks covers it all. Get a free week now with promo code SportsGrid at SickScore.com.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern.
Welcome back in. It is in-game live game day right here on SportsGrid. Jeff Dawson sticking around for one more segment. Want to get into kind of a bigger picture look here at maybe some future bets that we should be thinking about as we get that much closer to the NCAA tournament in men's college basketball. By the way, Illinois now has taken back the lead. Really good game going on with Michigan State, 52-50, still 14 and a half minutes left to go in that Big Ten basketball game. We were talking off air about Florida, and they're in a tough matchup right now, a conference game with South Carolina. Florida went off as 15 or 15 and a half point favorites, but up by just 4 at the break in Gainesville, 37-33. And Tom, you mentioned you have a future ticket on the Gators. I know a lot of sharp people that have that same ticket. I think it's a great play. Florida is near and dear to my heart because my son went there, and something about this team I've seen for so many years. And Jeff, you mentioned it hasn't been since the Billy Donovan years that we've seen this team really get it done. And I just can't trust them. Jeff, I wonder what your thoughts are. Is Florida a great play on the futures board right now? And if they aren't, who is?
No, I think they are, Tom. Great eyes there. They're 21-3, 3 losses to Tennessee, Missouri, and Kentucky. They're big, long. They can play defensive ball. They can play transition ball. They can beat you 80-78, and they can beat you 65-60. The problem, I don't think they're getting enough hype, is the SEC is that deep this year. We saw today Auburn go into Alabama and box to wire Alabama there. You talk about Alabama, Florida, Tennessee down 17 at home today, come back to beat Vanderbilt. So this talks 10, 11, 12 teams just in the SEC this year. So you're getting a great price on Florida. I really, really think that is a spot to look at. And what I like to say with the bigger numbers on some of these futures is take a look at your books, shop around. If you got a 40, 45 to 1 on a team, see if you can get a ticket on them to make the Final Four as well. So you get through the first weekend, you get down to the Sweet 16, the Elite 8. It helps you as you're getting closer to that Final Four to hedge, put a little extra money on. At least one of your tickets is moving on. That's all.
So because the SEC has so many good teams, does this have you interested in just betting on the conference, not the NCAA tournament, the conference tournament? Because anyone can win seemingly. There's 4, 5, 6 teams. Do you have an interest in taking one of the longer shots, just hoping on one of these big upsets?
In the SEC tournament itself, Tom?
Yeah, because if anyone can win, there's so many good teams, why not just take a shot on one of these deeper teams that you think can win it?
What usually happens here is in Auburn, for instance, unless it really struggles down the stretch, which I don't think is going to get a number 1 seed. Now, what happens to an Alabama? What happens to a Kentucky here? So sometimes a team can take their foot off the gas here and say, hey, listen, we're already guaranteed to a number 2 seed. We can't get anything higher than a 2 seed right now. So I go back to UConn 2 years ago. They couldn't get anything higher. They lose in the semis. They go on to win the title. So if you want to take a look at a Florida, maybe a Kentucky, maybe a Tennessee that needs to get to the title game or win the title for a bigger seed, then yes, I definitely agree with that, Tom.
Jeff, outside of the SEC, is there another team kind of laying low in the weeds there that you think is a good futures bet to make to cut down the nets and not just to necessarily win the championship, but to put yourself in a position where you can monetize come late March?
Well, a couple teams that were late to the dance. Obviously, you talked about Houston a few segments ago. Big boy win this today in Arizona, down 7 late. They with a 12-0 run. Duke is head over heels the best team in the ACC. Player of the Year, Cooper Flagg. I talk about St. John's, 47-1 to win the national title, 9 or 10-1 to get to the Final Four. I think they're a sneaky team as well. A Texas Tech or a Texas A&M as well. Keep your eyes on those. Take a look at some prices to cut the nets down, but again, to get to the Final Four as well.
Well, I hope you're right about Texas A&M. They play great defense, and I do have a ticket on them. I think it's 70-1 to cut down the nets. Come on, Aggies! And there's another SEC team for you. Jeff, thank you as always so much. Enjoy your Sunday, my friend, and we'll do it again soon.
Thank you guys so much.
All right, that is Jeff Dawson from East Coast Sports Investors. Check him out on Twitter, East Sports Invest. We'll be right back in a moment.
Slow play drum beat grows louder and louder every week to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Skovron, when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who knows how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams. Who's got the best goaltending? You're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
34. They are 14 games below 500. Any given night, you have no idea who is going to play for Philadelphia. Embiid has missed so many more games than he has actually played this year.
I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens because for the last 4 years now, I do it every year, and I want to hit myself in the head with a bat.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
right, welcome back to In Game Live Game Day here on a Saturday evening. Brady Kannon and Tom Vecchio with you, and off and running with a lot of great guests this morning. George Kurtz this morning, I should say this evening. George Kurtz got us started. Was it that long ago? No, it was just a few minutes ago. George Kurtz talking some hockey with us, and then Steve Merrill and just most recently Jeff Dawson. Thank you to them for sure. We'll talk some college baseball a little bit later on with our friend Matt Grissom. Of course, yes, college baseball got underway on Friday across the country, and I am already invested in some futures, Mr. Vecchio, on who's going to get to Omaha and be the College World Series championship, or who is going to be the College World Series champion, I should say. I went there last year to watch Texas A&M take on Tennessee in what turned out to be a 3-game series. It was split the first 2 games, and then the rubber match on Monday, of course, won by Tennessee, who was your national champion last season. And Texas A&M now currently starts as the preseason favorite, the number 1 ranked team in the country. We turn to hockey here. 14 minutes left now in the second period. They are underway in the second period in Montreal. The 4 nations face off. Team USA and Team Canada tied at a goal apiece. And pretty much where we started at the beginning of the period, except not the case for the total. The money line still in favor of the United States, minus 120. The total now down to 5.5, Tom. And we were talking about this with George. George liked the over. And the way the game started, well, he was a kid in a candy store. It got all the way to 7.5 as far as the live price. Now we're down below where it went at puck drop, a full goal below at 5.5. And it's pretty much a pick 'em. If you want to go over that, it's only minus 115. We talked about some of the late money coming in on the under. Your thoughts on this game and how this total has moved?
It's kind of going the way I talked about it a couple days ago with Scott Wetzel and Dave Sherapan when I was on Game Time Decisions or in Game Live on Wednesday and Thursday when things got started off, where these teams have so much to play for and things were going to tighten up. And, maybe there should have been a little bit more scoring with Cale Makar being listed as out for Canada. He's the best defender in the world. You think there'd be more offense, but that just means someone else has to elevate their game. So seeing things tighten up, and it's not just the overall scoring, it's the shots. Like, these teams are not getting the volume of just scoring chances at a bare minimum. So that's good to see just from an effort perspective. Instead of an all-star game, we're seeing teams out there that actually want to play and win, which is absolutely great. I wish I jumped in under 7.5. I am on under 6.5, as I mentioned, but I think we're in a good spot. Just to give a quick update on college basketball, because, Steve was talking about, we have to be on BYU at home. It's just not a good spot for Kansas State. They're up by 12 points already, and the live line's 13.5 because, the altitude, new conference matchup. So really, really key insight there. BYU up by 12 right now.
Yeah, Kansas State really ticked me off. I mentioned to you off air that I have a futures ticket on Arizona, and I really thought that they were going to get a win today at home. The McHale Center in Tucson is such a good, heavy home court advantage, but they not only lost, they didn't even cover the spread. They were getting 2.5 points. Houston wins that one by 4, and it was maybe a little bit of a look-ahead spot earlier in the week when they were playing Kansas State, thinking about this matchup with Houston, and Kansas State was red hot, and they beat Arizona as well. So now that's 2 straight losses for Arizona. I don't like that, but I think as hot as K-State has been, and we talked about it, wins recently over Kansas and then again Arizona, and now going on the road, unfamiliar territory, altitude, and BYU's no slouch. We're talking about the SEC, the Big East. The Big 12's a pretty darn good basketball conference as well, Tom.
Yeah, and speaking of basketball out west, the 3-point contest has been going underway. We haven't really touched on that too much, but Dame Lillard actually got knocked out. We just spoke about him a little while ago with Weber State. He got knocked out, and the 3-point finale is moving on to Tyler Hero has just come away with the win. So he was plus 550 thereabouts, comes away with the win. It wasn't Dame Lillard. No 3-peat for him. No 3-peat for the Chiefs. I'm sorry to say that, but I guess that's what we're getting this week.
Well, I certainly enjoyed no three-peat by the Chiefs, but Dame Lillard would have been awful cool for him to get it done there in his old hometown growing up in Oakland, California, I believe, across the bay tonight at the Chase Center in San Francisco. But congratulations to Tyler Hero winning the three-point shootout. And now I guess it's on to the dunk contest, correct?
Right. The skills competition has finished. That was, I believe, the Cavs came away with that. That was ending right as the hockey game was starting, so there was a whole lot going on. But Cavs won the skill competition. Hero wins the three-point, and now the dunk contest will be coming up. And I guess if the theme holds true, that Mac McClung will not get his three-peat as well.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I didn't know he was a two-time defending champ.
Yes.
Wow.
He's a G League player that they often call up. He is playing for the Orlando Magic G League team. He is also going for a three-peat in the dunk contest. So if this trend holds true, it won't be Mac McClung. Maybe it's, Jackson from the Spurs. We're going to be getting something different from the NBA dunk contest. Obviously, there's different markets that you can and cannot bet. Don't have them available to me here in Connecticut, but we can touch on that and update you as that goes on.
Did you have any action or do you have any action? Did you have anything on the three-point shootout, what have you, or do you have anything going into Sunday's game, the finale?
So my take on the NBA All-Star MVP, I think, has been pretty consistent over the past few years. And I had said over the past few years, whether it's Curry, LeBron, or Durant, kind of the three older players, that they've had their time. And I would say, this is the time for LeBron to defer to a younger player. This is a time for, he doesn't have to be going out there giving 110%. So we might as well just take a shot on a longer player. You're not going to go plus 550 for Steph Curry or someone in an All-Star game. You might as well take a shot on someone that's at 20-1 just because, A, we don't know what the playing times can be like. You don't want to go in such a short number in a fan-voted All-Star game where there's a ton of variance. So, someone like Donovan Mitchell or Cade Cunningham, who's had a phenomenal first half of the Pistons. They're sitting above 500. They're, in a playoff slot. Cade Cunningham at 65-1. Again, an extremely small unit play, a tenth of a unit, a fifth of a unit play on something. We have to know what we're dealing with in terms of an All-Star game. So I'm not going to LeBron James or Steph Curry for an MVP. I assume Steph Curry will be somewhat popular because it's one of his last All-Star games, definitely his last All-Star game at home. So I understand people will be going there. That's just not for me.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, it seems like that is too much of the obvious choice. There's probably a ton of tickets on Steph Curry, and and that's I like to be a little bit more contrarian. Tend to want to be more in the minority. I'm with you. Something like a Donovan Mitchell or a Cade Cunningham. Somebody that's a little under the radar at a nice price makes a lot of sense for me. We were talking a little bit about the hockey game, and before we go to break, I want to continue to pick your brain about that a little bit. 11 minutes left in the second period. You mentioned you have under 6.5 goals. Yeah. Would you gamble a little bit and try and middle this and take over 5.5 and hoping that this contest could land on 6? We're still a period and a half. We're only halfway through the hockey game right now. We need 4 more goals to hit 6.
So the answer is yes, you can do this, but it also depends because we're seeing over 5.5 at plus 112. Which would be different if it's over 5.5 minus 110 or minus 120. So if me or anyone out there in this situation, not just for this game, but overall, if you can make the math work, right? Because it's obviously very different of getting a plus 112. If you can make the math work, I don't mind doing that, especially in a kind of a unique format like this. I wouldn't do this on a game by game basis like on a normal regular season game, but this is a little bit different. I think you could do it so get the plus 112, a little bit lower unit, et cetera, et cetera.
All right, very good. We will see. We'll go to break here, give Tom some time to maybe get down on over 5.5 goals. When we come back, we'll tell you if he did. It is in-game live game day right here on SportsGrid.
Slow play, drum beat grows louder and louder every week to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Skovron, when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who knows how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams, who's got the best goaltending? Over, you're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
20 in 34. They are 14 games below 500. Any given night, you have no idea who is going to play for Philadelphia. Embiid has missed so many more games than he has actually played this year.
I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens because for the last 4 years now, I do it every year, and I want to hit myself in the head with a bat.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
A quick check here of the college basketball scoreboard. BYU really putting it on Kansas State, up by 14 now, 34-20. Just about 2.5 minutes left in the first half there in Provo. Florida starting to pull away from South Carolina. They were up by 4 at halftime, now up by 12, 52-40 in favor of the Gators. 14 minutes, about 14 and a half minutes left in Gainesville there. They went off as 15 or 15.5 point favorites. Texas went off as about a 4.5 point favorite at home over Kentucky, and they've been losing most of this game, but they have now pulled out in front over the Wildcats, 58-55 in favor of the Longhorns with about 9.5 minutes left in regulation in that one. And Michigan State and Illinois, this has really been the game of the evening here so far in Champaign, 65-64 in favor of Illinois. Just under 8 minutes left in this one. In the live market, Illinois is a 2.5 point favorite, a very interesting number there. And, I thought it just moved to 3.5. I think I would probably lay the 2.5 because pretty soon we're going to get down to free throws and all that stuff. Illinois was a favorite in this game, looking to avenge a loss from earlier this season in East Lansing. 2.5 seems pretty short with the home team. UC Riverside leading Santa Barbara 65-62, and TCU all over Arizona State 61-54. 5 minutes left in that one. Brady Kannon and Tom Vecchio here with you on a Saturday night. In about 15 minutes, we'll start talking some college baseball. Yes, college baseball is underway. I have really fallen in love with this sport in the last 5 years or so. Went to the College World Series last year. Matt Grissom will join us and give us some of his thoughts as far as futures and what teams you should be looking out for as this season has just gotten underway. Tom, speaking of futures, I know you're a huge hockey guy and you do have some futures, I assume, for Stanley Cup, conference, what have you. Talk to us a little bit about some of the futures you have in pocket in the NHL.
Yeah, so on the day that free agency started over the summer in July, I grabbed the Predators at 30-1 because there were some reports that they were going to sign Jonathan Marchessault and Steven Stamkos, which they did, and that number subsequently dropped to about 20 or 21-1 later that day, so I got in at 30-1, and the Preds started off the season absolutely terrible. They're now 200-1 to win the Stanley Cup, so that one's dead. I also do have a Jets future, the Winnipeg Jets, just because I know George talked about them. They're kind of like the Dallas Cowboys of the NHL, but they are extremely strong on defense, and Connor Hellebuyck, who is the goalie for Team USA, he's going to win the Vezina Award this year, which is goalie of the year. So they are an extremely strong team. Can they get over that hump to actually win it in the playoffs, or win just not even the Stanley Cup, just win series, get further into the playoffs? I think they can. And it's partly just due to the inconsistency we have seen from other teams when we're looking especially at the West. And, looking at some of these odds, Edmonton plus 260, obviously in the Stanley Cup last year. Dallas, a team that's I always have faith in, but they've never gotten it done in the playoffs. The Avs won a couple of years ago. Winnipeg sitting there, and then Vegas obviously coming off the win, the Stanley Cup from a few years ago. So we can poke holes in all of these teams. And it's not saying we can't poke holes in the Jets, because we absolutely can. But I just want to buy into a team that has a little bit of a longer number, that's going a little bit undervalued. And if things hold true as where they are in the standings, they're going to be hosting a home playoff series at round one. And that's what we saw last year, ended up losing to Colorado. So I want to at least buy into a team learning from what they have done in previous years and having arguably the best goaltender in the league right now.
By the way, Team USA and Team Canada still locked at 1 apiece. 8 minutes left in the second period here up in Montreal. The Four Nations face-off. And for the audience there, Tom did not play over 5.5 goals in the live market. That number now, plus 148. It's the balance there, right? You get a juicier plus number, but you have less time to get 4 more goals on the board. I think I'd be with you. It's kind of like, the old blackjack term, don't ruin a good hand. Don't get greedy. So you've got under 6.5. That's a pretty good bet you've made. I think my advice would be, let's sit tight. Let's not get greedy, and let's hope that you cash that ticket. Back to the NHL futures, Stanley Cup futures, if you will. You mentioned you have a ticket that you feel is live on Winnipeg, not so much on Nashville. Florida just seems like it's like Tampa Bay and Florida have just traded places as a team that, is seemingly getting to the finals or the conference finals or whatever. These teams have become very, very dominant. The Vegas Golden Knights, we're fortunate out here in Las Vegas. This team in their very first season went to the Stanley Cup final. They won one, like you said, 3 years ago. Are there some other teams outside of Winnipeg that you kind of think, again, are maybe a little bit undervalued, maybe a little bit under the radar, that you can get a nice price to either win the conference or win the cup?
It's tough because things are, I'm going to say, so there's very clear tiers in the NHL, which is something that we see in the NBA, like the top of the East, the top of the West. We know exactly where these teams are going. So like taking a shot on the Rangers or the Bruins or the Kings, it just doesn't make sense because they have more holes compared to the other top teams. And I would never take a wild card team to win multiple series when they're all starting them all on the road. That's what it really comes down to. Can you take a shot on New Jersey thinking that they'll put the piece together? It really comes down to the health of Jacob Markstrom, their starting goalie, who was supposed to be the starting goalie for Team Sweden, but he's been out for multiple weeks and will continue to be out for, I think, another 4 weeks. So I have faith in the Devils, but they just have to put the piece together, and they're just not healthy. So it's like, talk to me when they are healthy.
Tom, what about the Carolina Hurricanes? It seems this team is a great regular season team. Every year they look attractive to bet, to win the conference, whatever it is, but then they just can't seem to get it done in the postseason.
It's the same story. It's like they make great moves. They picked up Mikko Rantanen from Colorado, but they seemingly fall every time when they are in the playoffs. And dollar for dollar, I'm just going to side with the Panthers, and I may even side with New Jersey at a certain point. So I have no faith in the Hurricanes. They've burned me before. I don't want to say it's like recency bias, but I will just take the Panthers 10 times out of 10 ahead of the Hurricanes, especially a better price.
I love the situation with the Panthers after they lost the cup to the Vegas Golden Knights, and I felt they were really live to get back there, and sure enough, they did and won it. And I very late in the year, got on them and cashed that ticket. And maybe I'll do that again. 1-1, Canada and USA still tied up in Montreal.
slow play drum beat grows louder and louder every week, to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scoverin, when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who knows how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams, who's got the best goaltending? You're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
20-34. They are 14 games below 500. Any given night, you have no idea who is going to play for Philadelphia. Embiid has missed so many more games than he has actually played this year.
I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens because for the last 4 years now, I do it every year, and I want to hit myself in the head with a bat.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Dylan Larkin lights the lamp for Team USA about 6.5 minutes into the second period, or 6.5 minutes left, rather, in the second period, to give Team USA a 2-1 lead over Team Canada in the Four Nations face-off up in Montreal. And Team USA now, Tom, all the way out to a -350 favorite on the money line. The in-game total really remains unchanged. It is still at 5.5, but over 5.5. We were just talking about that as getting attractive there with the price in the neighborhood of +180. If you wanted to go over 5.5, it's now -150 with the USA taking the 2-1 lead.
Yeah, this is obviously a massive change from what we just saw. The under, as we were going to break, under 5.5 was -235. Things have shifted dramatically. We're getting to the point where, especially as we wind down the second period, as we get into the third, just from like a fundamental standpoint or a game plan standpoint from Canada, their defenders are going to start to have to pinch down the boards, which will open up more 2-on-1s, which can lead to scoring. So that's where we could see some extra goals come through, whether it ends up 4-2, 4-1, whatever it might be. We're also getting to the point where I'm actually really, really interested in something that we spoke about with George at the top at 8 o'clock. Canada over 5.5 for the next game, and also once their team total gets posted, because they're going to need to win in regulation. The difference between this tournament and regular NHL scoring is you get 3 points for a regulation win and 2 points for a win in overtime. So Team USA beat Finland in game 1. They got 3 points. Canada beat Sweden in game 1, only got 2 points. So now if Canada doesn't get any points and Team USA gets these 3 points, Canada's going to be in a tough spot to make the final. They need to beat Finland. They need to be in regulation. So that's where my kind of handicapping will be moving forward for a game at Monday at 1 p.m.
Ideally, would you want to see Canada get into the final? Because I think we know by now, after watching for a few days of this tournament, it seems these are the 2 best teams, Canada and USA.
They are, from an excitement standpoint. The answer is always US versus Canada. I never want to see Canada win in hockey, and that is just that is Tom speaking. That is not Tom Vecchio of SportsGrid speaking. That is Tom Vecchio speaking. That I never want to see Canada win. I never want to see a Canadian team win the Stanley Cup. I always want them to remain in the U.S. That's what I'm saying. So I would love to see Canada not make the finals and not be one of the top 2 teams in the world. And of course, next year during the Olympics, of course, Team USA will be coming away with the gold. That is the real prize.
What about from a betting standpoint? Is there a matchup that you see on the horizon that you feel you would have the best edge, whether you're taking Team USA or their opponent, if they're going to go on and win here? But again, is there a matchup in the finals that you feel very comfortable about betting one way or another?
So if we saw Team USA versus Sweden in the final, which is what could happen, because we also could get to a point where Canada beats Finland. If Sweden beats USA, then we have to worry about, as a regulation, again, the 3 or the 2 points, whatever it might be. But USA versus Sweden in the final would be very good. Just the core of Sweden's defense is very, very strong, and it can kind of counteract USA's offense, which is probably their strong suit. So that would probably be the second best matchup. Most people probably don't want to see Finland just because it probably won't give us the highest quality game. So USA versus Canada would be the best matchup overall, and then USA versus Sweden would be number 2.
How about the goal scorers for tonight? Connor McDavid for Team Canada, Jake Gensel and Dylan Larkin for Team USA. Any prop bets cashed? Anything that surprises you or jumps out at you by these goal scorers? McDavid, probably no surprise at all.
Right. No, so Dylan Larkin's awesome. He's the captain of the Red Wings. He's playing on the 4th line for Team USA, fourth liners rarely score in the NHL. Obviously, he's a tremendous player in when it's all said and done. He's just on the 4th line for this. I said this to Ben and Donnie on the early line. It's not going to be a surprise to see Austin Matthews and Jack Eichel and Jack Hughes and some of these players not score for Team USA just because there's so much talent outside of them that we have 4th liners. Kyle Connor for the Winnipeg Jets is a 30-40 goal scorer. He's playing on the 4th line alongside Dylan Larkin. So there's just too much talent. It's actually pretty difficult to find one goal scorer outside of a McDavid.
Yeah, Jack Eichel, by the way, assisting on that goal by Jake Gensel earlier. That was in the first period. Boldy gets the assist here with Larkin lighting the lamp here in the second period. Again, Team USA up 2-1 on Team Canada in the Four Nations face-off up in Montreal. 3 minutes left to go in the second period. USA minus 360 on the money line. Your total still at 5.5, a reasonable price. Just about minus 110 either way. We'll be back with more in just a moment, talking college baseball as we kick off hour number 3.